Madison Harper and her best friend, Emily Collins, seemed like any typical teenagers in Willow Creek, Texas, smiling at football games, perfecting cheer routines, and sharing secrets in whispered conversations. But one quiet morning, Madison would be found lifeless in her own bathtub, and the shocking truth about who was behind her death would turn the town upside down. In the small town of Willow Creek, Texas, Madison Harper was known by everyone. She was 17 with a bright smile that could light up a room and an energy that made her impossible to ignore. From a young age, she had thrown herself into cheerleading, spending countless hours perfecting routines, learning stunts, and pushing herself to be the best. Her dedication had paid off, earning her a spot on the school's elite cheer team and making her a favorite among her peers. On weekends, Madison's social calendar was packed with school events, football games, and gatherings with friends. She seemed to glide effortlessly between these worlds, always cheerful, always composed. Her teachers spoke of her as a model student, responsible and ambitious, while her classmates admired her popularity and charm. Everyone assumed Madison had the kind of life most teenagers only dreamed of. But beneath the surface, the life Madison presented to the world was far more complicated. At home, there were whispered arguments and tension that few outsiders noticed. Her parents appeared supportive, but neighbors sometimes overheard shouting late at night or the sound of doors slamming. Friends noted that Madison occasionally seemed anxious, her laughter masking something deeper, a worry she never shared. She had begun to retreat into her room more often, spending hours alone scrolling on her phone, typing messages she would delete moments later. It was as if she were keeping parts of her life hidden, building walls around herself that nobody could penetrate. Despite these undercurrents, Madison's daily routine rarely suggested trouble. She would wake early for cheer practice, her hair tied in a perfect ponytail, her uniform crisp and spotless. She would greet her teammates with enthusiasm, encouraging them and laughing easily. On the drive to school, she often listened to upbeat music, nodding along with the lyrics, her energy contagious. Teachers noticed her dedication and often commented on her positivity, unaware of the subtle tension that sometimes clouded her expressions. Social media painted a picture of a life filled with joy, photos of games, selfies with friends, and videos from dance competitions created the illusion of a perfect, carefree existence. Her friendships were strong on the surface, but some of Madison's closest companions sensed a fragility beneath her confident exterior. She rarely spoke about her personal struggles, keeping even her closest friends at arm's length. There were moments when she seemed withdrawn, her eyes reflecting worrying she could not explain. Text messages from unknown numbers sometimes appeared on her phone, cryptic and troubling, but she brushed them off, never wanting to burden anyone with her fears. Even the cheer routines, which brought her so much joy, occasionally left her exhausted and distracted. In Willow Creek, Madison was the girl everyone thought they knew, but in reality, her life was quietly complicated, with unseen pressures and secrets she carried alone. People admired her, envied her, and trusted her, unaware that behind the smiles and the stunts was a teenage girl navigating a world that could be unpredictable and, at times, dangerous. The cracks in her seemingly perfect life were invisible to most, but they were there, setting the stage for a tragedy that no one in the town could have imagined. Her story began like so many others, with promise and potential, but hidden beneath the ordinary routines were the shadows of something far darker. The mornings started like any other in Willow Creek. The sun filtered through the blinds of the Harper household, casting soft lines across the kitchen floor. Madison's mother had woken early, preparing breakfast and organizing the day ahead. She had expected to hear the familiar sounds of her daughter getting ready for school, the laughter, the chatter, the rushing footsteps, but that morning was different. The house was quiet in a way that felt wrong, the kind of silence that raises unease. Following an instinct she couldn't ignore, she went to check on Madison, calling her name softly at first. When there was no answer, her concern grew. She approached the bathroom, the small sense of unease turning into a sinking dread, and there she found her daughter, lifeless in the bathtub. The sight froze her in place, the world narrowing to the incomprehensible reality before her. When the police arrived, the scene was both ordinary and horrifying. The bathroom appeared untouched, the water still in the tub, and nothing in the room suggested a struggle had occurred. Madison's belongings were in place, towels folded neatly, bath products lined on the edge of the tub, her clothes carefully draped over a chair. The investigators noted the lack of forced entry, which immediately complicated the search for a suspect. No signs pointed to a random intruder, and yet Madison's life had been violently taken from her in the supposed safety of her own home. It was a case that defied easy explanations. Neighbors, when questioned, admitted to hearing nothing unusual, further deepening the mystery. In Willow Creek, a town where everyone knew everyone else, the murder of a teenager in her own bathtub seemed almost impossible. Detectives worked methodically, documenting every detail of the scene. They noticed small but peculiar clues. The water temperature seemed carefully controlled, the positioning of Madison's body appeared deliberate, and traces of an unusual substance were found in the water. Forensic teams began analyzing these traces, wondering if they might indicate poison or another chemical agent. Meanwhile, the police canvassed the neighborhood, searching for anyone who might have seen or heard something that could lead to answers. Rumors began to circulate among townspeople, strangers in the area, suspicious vehicles, and odd behavior by people close to the family. Everyone wanted to know who could have done such a thing and why, but answers remained elusive. The discovery shook the community to its core. Willow Creek was a place where children played in the streets and doors were rarely locked, a town where people felt safe. Madison's death destroyed that sense of security, leaving neighbors anxious and fearful. Parents worried for their own children, friends grieved and struggled to comprehend what had happened, and the Harper family was engulfed in unimaginable sorrow. The tragedy dominated local news, and social media became a storm of speculation, theories, and condolences. As the investigation unfolded, the questions only multiplied. How had the perpetrator gained access without detection? What was the motive behind a crime so deliberate yet seemingly without purpose? Each new discovery in the investigation added layers of complexity, painting a picture of a case that was anything but straightforward. The quiet town that had always seemed safe now faced a chilling reality. The danger had been closer than anyone could have imagined, and the answers they sought would reveal a darkness hidden beneath the familiar streets and friendly faces of Willow Creek. As the investigation into Madison Harper's death progressed, it became clear that the surface of her life concealed far more than anyone had realized. Police began sifting through her personal belongings, her phone, her computer, and even her diary, hoping to uncover any clue that could point to a motive or a suspect. What they found surprised them. Madison's diary, once thought to be a harmless collection of teenage thoughts and doodles, revealed entries filled with fear and anxiety. She wrote about feeling watched, about receiving messages that unsettled her, and about a growing sense that someone close to her was not who they seemed. These entries painted a picture of a young girl trying to navigate a world that suddenly felt threatening despite the outward perfection of her life. Forensic teams made another startling discovery. Chemical analysis of the bathtub water revealed traces of a rare substance, one not commonly found in households. It suggested that Madison's death had not been accidental. The investigators concluded that the perpetrator had planned the crime with a meticulous level of detail, creating a scene that appeared ordinary while concealing the deadly method. The combination of her hidden fears and the calculated nature of her death made the case increasingly complex. It was no longer a tragedy caused by chance, it was a premeditated act executed with precision and targeted at a specific victim. As police interviewed friends and classmates, more troubling details emerged. Some revealed that Madison had received strange texts from anonymous numbers, messages that were cryptic and sometimes threatening. Others mentioned seeing her distressed in ways that she tried to hide from adults. There were also accounts of her growing increasingly secretive about her online activity, her phone often locked and hidden. The picture that emerged was of a young girl who had sensed danger long before her death, yet had no way to protect herself from someone she trusted. Each revelation added a layer of mystery, forcing investigators to reconsider assumptions about who could have had access to her and what their intentions might have been. Meanwhile, the community struggled to process these new revelations. People who had once thought of Madison as carefree and happy began to realize that her life had contained hidden struggles. Parents became wary of technology, concerned about who might be contacting their children, while friends replayed their interactions with Madison, searching for signs they might have missed. The quiet, seemingly perfect streets of Willow Creek now seemed fragile, vulnerable to secrets that could hide in plain sight. The investigation also turned up small, overlooked details in Madison's daily routine. She had recently changed her usual patterns, taking different routes to school, spending late nights online, and meeting certain friends in private. Combined with the forensic evidence, it became apparent that someone had observed her movements carefully, exploiting moments of vulnerability. The idea that Madison's murder was random was discarded. This was a crime designed with forethought, aimed at a single target. As investigators pieced together the timeline, it became clear that the danger had been present long before that tragic morning, lurking behind normalcy and familiarity. The more the truth came into focus, the more chilling the reality became, and the sense of shock in Willow Creek deepened. As everyone struggled to comprehend how a life so full of promise could be brought to such a sudden and calculated end. As the investigation into Madison Harper's death stretched on, the detectives found themselves facing a growing list of suspects, none of whom seemed to fit the profile of a calculated murderer. Friends, neighbors, and acquaintances were questioned repeatedly, yet each lead ended in dead ends. It seemed that everyone in Willow Creek had an alibi, a reason why they could not have been involved. The frustration mounted, and the town's residents grew restless, their curiosity turning into fear and suspicion. Small conflicts that had once seemed trivial were suddenly scrutinized, as people began wondering if someone familiar could hide such a dark secret. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. Investigators reviewed footage from local security cameras, a routine step that initially seemed unlikely to yield results. One store's camera captured a figure leaving the area near Madison's house late at night, a person who appeared to be moving deliberately, almost as if they had timed their movements carefully. The image was grainy, but detectives noticed the figure's posture and clothing details that suggested familiarity with the neighborhood rather than that of a stranger. The sighting contradicted earlier assumptions that no outsider could have been involved. It raised the unsettling possibility that the person responsible for Madison's death had been someone she knew, someone who could move unnoticed because they were trusted. The detectives began to re-examine the people closest to Madison. The friends she spent the most time with, the classmates she shared secrets with, and even those who had been considered family friends came under scrutiny. It was a painstaking process, peeling back layers of trust and ordinary appearances. The more the investigators dug, the more subtle inconsistencies they discovered: small lies, contradictions in alibis, and unexplained movements during critical hours. Each piece of evidence was minor on its own, but together they formed a pattern that was impossible to ignore. The town reacted with disbelief as the investigation shifted in this unexpected direction. People who had once been seen as ordinary, friendly, and trustworthy suddenly became subjects of speculation. Rumors spread, conversations in classrooms and cafes turned into debates about who could have done such a thing, and the sense of safety that had defined Willow Creek evaporated. The notion that a predator had been hiding in plain sight was terrifying, reshaping the way the community viewed itself and everyone around them. As the detectives closed in, they discovered further evidence linking the suspect to Madison. Phone records, timestamps from social media activity, and additional surveillance footage revealed moments when the suspect's movements coincided with Madison's routines. The meticulous planning became apparent this was someone who had studied her habits, understood her schedule, and exploited the trust she had placed in them. The revelation was jarring. The danger had not come from a stranger in the night, but from within Madison's circle, from someone who had maintained the appearance of innocence while orchestrating a crime no one could have imagined. The deeper investigators delved, the more chilling it became to realize how close the threat had always been, hiding behind ordinary faces and everyday routines, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The final pieces of the investigation came together in a way that shocked everyone involved. After weeks of painstaking work, the detectives were able to construct a timeline that revealed the full scope of the crime. It was no longer a mystery how Madison Harper had been targeted, nor how her murderer had operated with such precision. The evidence pointed to a single individual, someone who had been part of Madison's life, trusted and familiar, yet capable of planning and executing a crime with a disturbing level of calculation. What made the revelation even more unsettling was the motive, which was not rooted in jealousy, robbery, or revenge as many had assumed. Instead, it stemmed from obsession, a dark fixation that had grown over time and twisted into violence. As investigators presented their findings, the town struggled to comprehend the reality. The suspect had managed to maintain a normal, even friendly, appearance for months, hiding their intentions behind smiles, casual greetings, and everyday interactions. People who had considered this person a neighbor, a friend, or a mentor now had to confront the terrifying possibility that appearances could be so deceiving. The meticulous nature of the crime showed that the murderer had observed Madison closely, learning her routines, her habits, and the moments when she would be most vulnerable. Even the seemingly ordinary details of her life, the route she took to school, the times she left the house, the friends she spent time with, had been studied and exploited. The forensic evidence tied the suspect directly to the scene. Traces of the rare chemical found in the bathtub matched substances the individual had access to, and phone records placed them near Madison's home during critical hours. Further investigation revealed attempts to cover up these actions, from deleted messages to false statements about their whereabouts. The careful planning extended beyond the act itself. The murderer had anticipated scrutiny and taken steps to obscure their involvement. The more the investigators uncovered, the more chilling the picture became. This was not a crime of impulse. It was a carefully orchestrated attack, executed with a calculated understanding of the victim's life. For the community, the revelation brought both closure and lingering fear. Willow Creek had been a town that prided itself on safety, on the familiarity of neighbors and friends, yet the truth shattered that sense of security. Parents began scrutinizing every interaction their children had, friends questioned what they had missed in casual conversations, and the shadows of suspicion lingered long after the case closed. Madison's death became a cautionary tale, a reminder that danger could exist even in the most ordinary places, and that sometimes the people we trust most may not be who they appear to be. In the end, justice was served, but the emotional scars remained. The town mourned the loss of a vibrant, promising life, and the memory of Madison Harper became a symbol of both tragedy and vigilance. Her story served as a chilling reminder of the fragility of trust and the unpredictability of human behavior. The shocking twist that someone so familiar and seemingly harmless could commit such a crime left an indelible mark on Willow Creek. Even as the investigation concluded, the questions lingered in the minds of those left behind. How well do we really know the people around us, and how close can danger hide before it strikes? Madison's life, full of potential and promise, ended too soon, but the story of her death continued to resonate, haunting the town and serving as a warning that appearances can be deceiving and darkness can exist where it is least expected.